Of a Yom Tov Refresher, and I want to speak today about showering on Yom Tov. It's a very, very important issue when it comes to Shavuos, at least in the southern hemisphere of the world, and I think it's important that we lay down the groundwork and, God willing, continue through the week to see what the poskim said. So let's get down right to the beginning. We quoted the pasuk in Parshat Bo that says that on Yom Tov you're not allowed to do any malacha, but there is an exception, and that is food is okay. However, the pasuk says lechol nefesh, for every soul. The Gemara picks up on that in Masechet Ketubot, Daf Zayin Amud Aleph, and says that the only things that are allowed on Yom Tov are food, and things like food that are shaveh lechol nefesh. Namely, it's things that everyone needs, not things that only very spoiled people need. So the Gemara brings an example of mugmar. Mugmar was some sort of an incense that people would light, and it would make a nice fragrance in the house that only very, very few people need. But food, everybody needs. Washing your hands, everybody needs. Things like that are allowed on Yom Tov. As Rashi says, Davar shaveh lechol nefesh mutar, aval mugmar eino elo lemefunakim. Things that everybody needs, yes, but things that only spoiled people need, no. So from this perspective, on Yom Tov, you can of course cook because everybody needs to eat. On the other hand, to light a fragrance that makes a nice fragrance in the house, even by transferring fire, would be prohibited because it's not shaveh lechol nefesh, not equal need for every single person. Indeed, the Tosfot adds on to Rashi another knetch to this, and he says that it's not only shaveh lechol nefesh, it has to also be, and I quote, tzorech hana'at hayom or tzorech kiyum mitzvah b'yom tov. It has to be something that adds to the enjoyment of the day, or a mitzvah that you have to do that day. So for example, he says, quotes the Gemara in Masechet Beitza, that we paskin like Beit Hillel against the Beit Shammai, that you can go ahead and carry your lulav to shul without an eruv, because it's a mitzvah. You can go ahead and carry a baby, not because it's a mitzvah, but because it gives you joy to take a walk on Yom Tov. So even if we machmir like Tosfos against Rashi, at the end of the day, as long as it's a tzorech Yom Tov ksat, there's a need for it on Yom Tov, you can do it. Which leads us to our question. And that is, if it's not a need for everyone, so the Ktav Sofer, who is the son of the Chasam Sofer, asks a beautiful question. What's the heter to carry a lulav without an eruv? After all, we said it has to be shaveh lechol nefesh and a mitzvah that day. A mitzvah that day it is, but it's not shaveh lechol nefesh. It's not something equal for every soul, because 50% of the population, the women, are exempt from the mitzvah of lulav. They can volunteer, but at the end of the day, they're not obligated. So maybe carrying a lulav is not permitted on Sukkot. Maybe carrying a shofar is not permitted on Rosh Hashanah, because again, women are exempt. Beautiful question, but we see the assumption of the question is it has to be something shaveh lechol nefesh, equal to every Jew as a need on that day. The Ktav Sofer answers the question in saying that it gives you enjoyment to fulfill your mitzvah that day. So it's not just a mitzvah, it's also enjoyment. But leaving that aside for a moment, the end of the day, it has to be something shaveh lechol nefesh. And according to Tosfot, we add on tzorech hayom, something that you need that day, either for enjoyment or something for a mitzvah. So plugging it into our shower, it seems that everyone takes a shower every day, so that should be an upwin and shut case. But the Tosfot seems to say exactly that, but not exactly that. The Tosfot says in the Sechet Shabbos, Ri b'shem Riva, the rechitza ina ela leta'anug v'asor ish kamo mugmar. Washing yourself every day is like the mugmar. It's like the lighting of the fragrance. Only a few people do it. Not everybody do it. Mishum de'eno shaveh lechol nefesh. It's not something that everyone does all the time. V'chein mashpa b'Yerushalmi da'aynu tama derechitza. But zeya, he says, shavehu lechol nefesh de'ina tanug ela libriyut. Says the Tosfot that in his time, it wasn't that people washed themselves every day, but rather they washed themselves from time to time. And therefore it wasn't shaveh lechol nefesh to wash yourself every day. Zeya, whatever that might mean, sweating yourself was, but Washing yourself wasn't. So based on that, Tosfot, if we plug it into our generation, we have a lot to think about because, after all, we shower every day. So when it comes down to it, it's very surprising that if indeed everything we said is correct, A, on Yom Tov, you're allowed to do beyond cooking things that are shaveh lechol nefesh, things that everybody needs. B, it could be something that's tzorech hayom, namely something that you need that day, be it a mitzvah or enjoyment. A shower is definitely enjoyment for most people. Maybe not a hot bath. No one has the time for that every day, but a shower, a hot shower, everybody hopefully takes every day. So why is it that the Shulchan Aruch paskins, and I mutar le'achem b'Yom Tov lirchotz yadav v'lo kol gufo, you can warm up water on Yom Tov. Warming up water on Yom Tov is allowed, like you're allowed to cook, but only to wash your hands. Avalo kol gufo, not your entire body. Afilu ino rachatzol bevat echat. And indeed, you can only wash panav, yadav, raglav, your hands, your feet, your face, but not your whole body. After all, today, it's shaveh lechol nefesh. So indeed, we have a machlokas poskim. Why is it the Shulchan Aruch wrote this? Why is it that the Shmiras Shabbos Kehilchasa in the 20th century, Rabbi Yehoshua Neubert, Zecher Tzaddik Livracha wrote, Keshem Shasura Rechitzat Kol HaGuf Kulo B'Mayim Chamim B'Shabbat, just like you're not allowed to wash your whole body in hot water on Shabbos, Kachi Asura B'Yom Tov. And so too, it's Asur on Yom Tov. So comes along the Magen Avram and says, because of the Tosfos. Tosfos says, shaveh lechol nefesh. It's not something that everybody does every single day and needs it every day. He says this in two different places. In another place he says, B'Yom Tov shemutar le'achem mayim lishtot, v'afilu harchi asur lichotz behen. Everybody needs to drink a good cup of coffee, so you're allowed to warm up water for that, but you're not allowed to warm up water to wash yourself. And indeed, the Mishnah Berurah echoes the words of the Magen Avraham as he does many, many times. He says, "The rechitzat panav yadav ve'aglav hu davar shaveh lechol nefesh." Indeed, washing your hands, your feet, and your face is something everybody needs every day. Aval lo kol gufo, the rechitzat kol gufo davar sheino shaveh lechol nefesh. But washing your entire body, like in a shower, it's not something that people need every single day. Indeed, based on this logic, it's not only something that you're not allowed to do, but you're allowed to do the oraisa. Namely, if it's not shaveh lechol nefesh, then you're not allowed to do it on Yom Tov, the oraisa biblically, as the Mishnah Berurah points out, the Kama Poskim who isa the oraita the rechitzat kol haguf ino shaveh lechol nefesh. But the Rambam has a different perspective. His perspective is the reason you're not allowed to shower your entire body on Yom Tov, but only your hands, your feet, and your face, is because mishum gzeirat merchatz, the famous gzeira of the balanim, if you heard of it. Namely, the famous Gemara in Masechet Shabbos Daf Mem that says that Friday night they used to hang out in the bathhouse, and the bathhouse people used to tell them we warmed up the water before Shabbos, but they were lying. And because they were lying, the rabbis threw a fit and said we're making enactment that you're not going to wash your entire body in a bath that's hot on Shabbos because we're worried you're going to warm up water on Shabbos. And for some reason, the Rambam says this goes over to Yom Tov as well. A little strange because on Yom Tov you're allowed to warm up water to cook a spaghetti. You're allowed to warm up water to make a cup of coffee. So what's the big deal to warm up water for a bathhouse? But the Rambam says it goes there. So what comes out, according to the Rambam, is that indeed it's not an Isser de Oraisa, but an Isser de Rabbanan. The Oraisa probably would have been allowed. Maybe de Rabbanan, this Gzeira of Balanim that applies on Shabbos, will apply now on Yom Tov. So the Aruch HaShulchan doesn't understand the Rambam. He says, with due respect, the Rambam brings this law about not taking and not washing your entire body. V'tmiya Rabba ala Rambam. Why didn't he bring the whole law of shaveh lechol nefesh that we talked about? All he talks about is gzerat habalanim. At the end of the day, that should be the governing factor, and it would be usher the oraisa, biblically, not rabbinically, but biblically. For some reason, the Rambam totally omits it and said there's no problem biblically. The only problem is this rabbinic gzerat habalanim. At the end of the day, on Yom Tov, you're allowed to cook, and you're allowed to do everything beyond cooking. That's shaveh lechol nefesh, something that everybody needs, as long as tzorech hana'at hayom, it's something that you need for enjoyment of that day, or a mitzvah that day. So, from this perspective, when it comes to showering, the Tosfot says people don't shower every day, therefore it's not shaveh lechol nefesh. Accordingly, in this day and age, we have a lot to think about because people do shower every day. So even though according to Tosfot it's an Issa d'Oraisa, at the end of the day, since it is Shaveh Lechol Nefesh today, at least for most people to take a shower every single day, maybe it would be allowed on Yom Tov. But according to the Rambam, it's only the Rabbanan. It's the Gzeirat HaBalanim from Shabbos, that maybe they would warm up water on Shabbos. And as the Ramban says, that Mitchila Saru b'Shabbos v'Tiru b'Yontiv, at the beginning, it was only not allowed on Shabbos, but allowed on Yontiv, because you're allowed to warm up water on Yontiv. But at the end of the day, Saru b'Yontiv. So, indeed, if it's only rabbinic, there's no leeway on Yontiv. But if it's biblical, and according to Tosfot it is, and the reason that he didn't allow to wash your whole body is because it's not Shaveh L'chol Nefesh, then maybe today, where we take a shower every day, it would be Shaveh L'chol Nefesh, and we would be allowed to take a shower. So, at the end of the day, the best way to end this shir is to say, Higayon b'shigaon in Hebrew. Namely, crazy logic. If it's rabbinic, no leeway, no showers on Yom Tov. If it's biblical, there's what to talk about, which we will tomorrow. La 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 la.